Okay, hello and welcome back to the Thought Cloud podcast. Our goal with this conversation is to help students find their passions by hearing what their peers are passionate about. Our guest today is Caitlyn Guntle. Caitlyn is an incoming senior at UC Berkeley, where she studies media studies and cognitive science. Caitlyn is also part of the Cal dance team, so we'll touch on that and hear about her story there. And in addition to this, she is a part of the ASUC, which is student government at Cal, and we're going to hear about her role there and what kind of parts she's played in helping make the campus a better place for students. So, Caitlyn, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I'm super excited to hear more about it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's back up from the beginning. Studying at UC Berkeley, how did you decide UC Berkeley was a school for you?
Yes, so during the college application process, I only applied to schools in California. I'm from Southern California, born and raised, so I really wanted to stay in the state to, be by my younger sister and by my family. So basically, like the UCs were, something that, I knew were great institutions with, great academic programs. And I, had a lot of mentors in the college application process. And I kind of ended up at Berkeley because I actually applied to Berkeley super last minute. It wasn't on my list at first, which is so funny because I was like, you know what, I think that's a little bit too much of a reach. Like, I don't think I should apply there. I should, stick to the other schools that I think I have a better chance of getting into. But last minute, like literally as I'm submitting the application, I was like, you know what, I should just try, like, why not? And I had like this revelation. And Berkeley ended up being actually the only UC that I got into.
Wow.
So it's like so crazy how just things work out like that. Like, I was so close to not applying, and then it ends up being the only one that I, got into. Excuse me.
Wow.
So that it kind of just felt like Berkeley was like the perfect match for me in that sense. I really wanted to stay in California. And Berkeley is just like, an amazing institution, has, so much to offer in terms of like clubs, student life, academics, of course, research. So I was really excited to go there. I would say like the process of how I got there, I was very involved in my high school. I did a lot of extracurricular activities related to dance, related to student government. I did like ASB in high school and, was like class president and other things like that. So I really utilized my, skill set of like being outgoing and friendly to like kind of like use that in my extracurriculars to kind of show I have leadership and I have, influence and passion. So I feel like that's kind of like when I talk to my friends, we all have, kind of a similar, we are, try to be leaders in our community and make change. And I feel like that's what Berkeley sees, because I didn't have perfect grades. I didn't have like super high test scores, like compared to my peers, but I felt like I was really involved and passionate about what I was doing, which, I think made the difference. So that's kind of how I ended up at Berkeley, funnily enough, but yeah.
I love that. No, that's an awesome story. That last minute, checkbox, that's crazy how that worked out.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so now you're there and you're digging into campus. I mean, anyone can look at your LinkedIn profile from a glance and say, wow, this gal is doing a lot. And it's really cool to see that. So how has that been and how has that evolved over time? I guess we could start with maybe what you're studying. I think that's probably a good point to start. So media studies and cognitive science, did it always start with that intention? Is that how you applied, or how did that develop?
Okay, so this is a great story too. I am very, passionate about a lot of different things, right? So it's hard for me to really narrow down. I feel like something like your major seems so like big and, like something that identifies you as a person, especially when you're in college. And I just did not feel married to anything. So I applied to psychology. I originally thought I wanted to like go down the med school route and become like a psychologist. So I applied as that. I started, taking the psych classes and also like the med school path, like math courses. And I realized it just wasn't for me. Like I was thinking about it more. I was like, I feel like the opportunity cost of this, it's really for some people, who are really passionate about, medicine and all of that, but I just didn't feel like a right fit. So I was soul searching for a different major. And I had a lot of mentors who were a year older than me who, were talking to me about it. I think that's a huge thing too, is like talking to people, and like hearing other people's experience. So this is great for that. But a lot of people were like, oh, like if you're interested in this, you should look at cognitive science, you should look at sociology, you should look at business even. It's like a great intersection. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I started researching, and I actually didn't really look into cognitive science until my sophomore year. So my freshman year, it was still, everything was virtual because of COVID. So I was still, taking like psych classes and, med school path classes. But I knew that I was also interested in media studies. So I took like one media studies class, I think like the intro. And then I heard about what Berkeley Haas was, and I was like, oh my gosh, this seems, so amazing. And I've always felt like I've had like a business personality and an entrepreneurial spirit. So I was like, why not try to go down that path? But that is a commitment in itself. It is a bunch of, prerequisite courses that you have to take to even apply. And then, you apply and if you don't get in, then it's kind of like, okay, now you got to start somewhere again. It's like you're a freshman again after your sophomore year. So I was taking all of the courses to apply to Haas, but I was also taking media studies courses because I thought that could be, a lot of people have like a backup plan for Haas because it's so competitive, it's more likely than not that you won't get in. But so I was doing that, and those classes were also, challenging to me. There's, econ and calculus, which I did not take in high school. So everything was very new. But then I applied to Haas and I didn't get in. I was like, okay, well, I have my media studies as a backup. I was kind of, expecting it. I wanted to give myself a shot, put myself out there. I feel like I'm known for that, for like putting myself out there. But I really wanted something more technical with my major. I really wanted a balance. And that's when I came across cognitive science. It's very similar to psychology, except that it has a coding and data science element to it. So some people at Berkeley will do cognitive science instead of computer science if they don't want as rigorous of courses, or they'll do cognitive science instead of data science if they want to combine, like neuroscience, data science, psychology, sociology. Like it's such an interdisciplinary major. So I stumbled across that and I was like, wow, this seems perfect. Like I could get those technical classes that I want to have to make sure, it was important to me to like have balance.
Right.
That's how I ended up on cognitive science and media studies. And now I'm studying that, and I really enjoy both of them a lot. So
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I love the twists and the turns. And I think that that's such a common part, right, of figuring out what your major is going to be. Obviously, you're a senior now, so you've got it locked in.
Yeah.
Unless you decide you want to take extra years and go
Who
that
knows?
route. So who really knows? But
Yeah.
touch on that a little bit for people that maybe are, married to their major, or they think they are, where this is a big part of my life. And if I don't get into that Haas program, or if I don't get into that, if I don't qualify for the computer science program, whatever it is,
Yeah.
Talk about that and how, it really, even though there's maybe not the path, it's not the path you always expect, it kind of can work itself in the right direction. Be curious to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I truly believe in the cliche, rejection is redirection, and like change. I think that to navigate, especially college, which is a time of so much change, like just embracing change is difficult, but so necessary to kind of like find what makes you, what is your passion. And maybe it's not something you're passionate about, maybe it's something you like, and that's just as good, I think. So yeah, I totally think it's so important to explore different majors, especially in your freshman year when you have the time to do so. I was taking a lot of like, I was taking some political science courses. I was taking, I was taking like an arts and literature course. So I was exploring a lot, and Berkeley facilitates that a lot. They, in each college, they have different breadth requirements that they make you take a class in every single division pretty much. And I think that's one of the most valuable things you can do, because, finding something you don't like is just as good as finding something you do like, because you can like move that from your list and be like, okay, I've got that out of the way. I know I don't enjoy studying that. So let's move on to the other things that I can figure out that I do like. So yeah, I think the twists and turns are all part of the process. And it definitely, helps show you and make you feel a little bit more comfortable and confident in your decision when you do end up deciding a major and you're like, okay, I did try all these other things and this is what I like best. So definitely.
Absolutely. I think, when we hear interesting stories all the time about, people that had, I don't want to say an English degree, and they end up getting into med school, and, or the biologist that goes to law school, and you're not ever defined by it as much as it seems like this big messing thing. So you're a testament to that. And that's really cool to see that you can go find your path and still do things outside of media studies and cognitive science. I think that's a good time for us to change pace and talk about what you've been doing in the ASUC.
Yeah.
That's a big student organization for government. I think I don't know if is it one of the biggest in terms of
I believe so, yeah.
it's massive. So how did you get involved in this? You were obviously involved in government in high school. You were your student body president. Um, did that make sense freshman year to jump right into student government again in college, or how did that fold itself into your path?
Yeah, so there it definitely is a relation. I was really involved in student government in high school, and I just wanted to be involved in college in general. So I was on the dance team when we auditioned like over the summer. So before I even started at Berkeley my first semester, I came across the ASUC because I was looking for other clubs to get involved in, especially during COVID. I wanted to, still meet people, like whether it was virtually or not. And I came across, the senators, and they each have their own like platforms and initiatives. And I found a senator who was looking for a menstrual equity intern. And that was something that I was passionate about. I was passionate about menstrual equity and women's rights. And I was like, well, this is so cool that Berkeley like has these student government positions that are actually like relevant to, real life. And, my student government in high school was just like, oh, make the posters, plan the rallies. Like It wasn't like as, serious as, things like menstrual equity. So I applied to that, and there's like an interview process, even like as, a freshman in a student government position like that. And I ended up getting it. And it was like my first exposure to ASUC. And it was just, I could see how much went into like trying to make Berkeley better for students. Like it wasn't just like a facade. It's like everyone is really doing everything they can to try to, help students come up with ideas. Because Berkeley can be such an academically rigorous place that it is mentally exhausting, and having like certain outlets to be able to help students in other ways is super useful. So that was kind of my first step into the ASUC.
Very nice. And so for people that don't know what menstrual equity is, what is menstrual equity?
Yes. So menstrual equity is, just trying to equalize opportunities for people who menstruate. So, for example, people who menstruate, if you've ever heard of the pink tax is like something that menstruators have to, put up front to pay for tampons and, period products, that there is a discrepancy in, the economic status of menstruating people and people who don't menstruate. So that's definitely just trying to equal the playing field in that sense. And on campus, they didn't offer any free menstrual products in campus bathrooms, which was, an issue in case that, a menstruating person had an issue with their menstruation on campus, right? You want to be able to have access to these products and, equal access to that. So that's kind of what menstrual equity is. There is, it's on a much more broad global scale because people face menstrual equity issues, abroad and where there isn't as much access. So it's definitely just, creating awareness for those events and just making it's been such a taboo topic in history. So, trying to make it less taboo and just discuss that in terms of, creating equality, on campus.
Wow. Yeah, no, I know that's important. I think there was I've seen a few initiatives around that where it's, hey, having a free product is a huge thing. Definitely. So that was your intro into student government. You were helping a senator with that. And it says also you were the marketing director of that program. Was that under that same leadership? Did that tie into itself?
So a little bit. So yeah, that was my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, I had a couple smaller roles in the ASUC. But through a few years, this wasn't right after I was that position, but the ASUC started a menstrual equity commission. So like commissions in the ASUC are basically like kind of like committees where people can advocate for certain issues in a more like institutionalized sense. Like instead of like people just trying to talk about it, it's like institutionalized within the ASUC to like kind of signal like, hey, this is an important issue on campus. We're going to have these people come together, and there's a chair of the menstrual equity and commission and the vice chair, and then there's a whole group of people who are in charge of like outreach and planning and trying to better things. So that was started. I want to say like a year after I was in as the menstrual equity intern in the Senate office. And I kind of rediscovered that because I was in other positions in the ASUC after that. I rediscovered it and I was like, oh, I have a recent interest in marketing. I wonder if I could kind of blend that with my passion for menstrual equity. And so I joined that as the marketing director. I kind of just manage the social media and do some designs.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so those first intro role was the intern to that program, and then it was actually the marketing director of that program. And
Yes.
now you are a senator.
Yes.
So tell us about that. That's a huge accomplishment, by the way. Congratulations. I think
Thank
that
you.
I know people put themselves out there. It's a lot of effort up front. I have
Hmm.
a few friends that became senators, and it was just such a happy time for them. So tell
Right.
us about that. What platform did you run on, and what have you been able to do? Or
Yes.
you just got elected in this May, right? So we'll
Yes. Or
start
yeah.
next year,
It'll start in the fall for my senior year.
right?
But yeah, so basically in the ASUC, there are like community endorsed senators to represent different communities on campus. And I have been involved in the dance community, both with like the Cal Dance team and also another dance club on campus that does performances and showcases, called Thrive Dance Company. And I was on, the board of Thrive Dance Company and discussing our issues and trying to put on our showcases. I realized that there were a lot of issues in terms of funding and accessibility for dance groups on campus, and this has been something that dance groups have been facing for a long time. But I realized that, and I was like, I really want to be involved in like trying to change this and to trying to make the situation better, because a lot of dance groups are practicing outside and late at night, and Berkeley is notorious for not having the safest area around it. So it was dangerous for dancers and dance groups to be practicing outside Berkeley in Berkeley in the cold. And just not with proper dance floors. So like certain dance groups had to limit their like expression in their dances. So there were a lot of internal issues in the Berkeley dance community. And for the past couple of years, there's been a Berkeley dance community senator that represents the dance community and kind of voices the issues and, tries to come up with solutions for the community. And I ended up working as the chief of staff for the Berkeley dance senator before me. And I was working on those issues, trying to come up with different solutions to increase funding, maybe have fundraisers, create access to spaces. And I really wanted to continue doing that, and I felt like kind of the next step for me was to campaign for senator, and specifically for the dance community, because there has been a dance community senator. So that was one of my main platforms, was the dance community and representing for them. And then the other platforms I came across as just things I was passionate about. So the next most important thing to me and for students on campus, I felt like, was student equity and menstrual equity. So student equity is kind of just in the more general sense of just helping students feel belonging on campus, and then menstrual equity, of course, is what I mentioned earlier. And then my last one was sexual health and sexual health resources. So just trying to create less of a taboo around the topic and making sure people are practicing safe sex and that there are sexual resources available. So those are kind of my main three components to my campaign, and what I was most passionate about helping on campus, and how I kind of like campaigned for that. So I ended up as senator. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, I can relate to, I think, a couple of those things for sure, because walking through campus at night, you would see multiple, dance practices going on. And
Yeah.
it was cold. It
Yeah.
was maybe dangerous in some settings. And
Mhm.
I definitely understand the importance of that, and the need for those resources there. And then obviously just, from the perspective of making people feel welcome. It is overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. There's so much going on. And
Definitely.
everybody needs a hand. So yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations. Huge accomplishment, and I'm excited to see what this next year is going to hold for you, because I know there's always more to do. How about that? So
Definitely.
great person to be in the position.
Thank you.
Speaking of dance, you've been a dancer your whole life. Tell
Mhm.
us about this path, and tell us about now what it's been like being at Cal on the dance team, which is a huge accomplishment as well.
Yes, definitely. So I grew up as a dancer. I started competing when I was like 8 years old. So it's been a long time. And I, did it competitively at two different studios. And at my last studio that I, still attend classes at and whatnot, I was a part of a competition group that was really good. And we actually applied to be on NBC's World of Dance, which was like a dance competition show hosted by Jennifer Lopez and Derek Huff and the music artist Neo. So they were like the judges of the show, and we ended up getting on to the show. And this was my sophomore year of high school. And so ended up getting onto the show, and I ended up having to leave school for like 1 or 2 months.
Wow.
and do, dance full time on the show. And it was in Los Angeles. So we had like big World of Dance had like a hotel that all the dancers stayed at. And, we were practicing constantly. It was like a real dance competition, except on the highest level, it seemed. So that was like my first exposure to professional dance. And that I think was also maybe an element that helped me stand out in the college application process, because I kind of talked about how I was able to navigate, missing school for such a long period of time, and like what I did to keep up with my studies, even though I wasn't at school, and following like my dream of being a dancer. So
What
that
was
was,
it like trying to keep up with your studies during that? I mean, a rigorous dance contest, I
yeah.
obviously don't know what that would be like because I've never been on a rigorous dance contest, but from different shows that I've seen where they're up all night practicing and trying to make sure that they're ready for that next performance. How do you keep up with school in a situation like that?
Yes, so it was very challenging. Since we were all under 18, they had a like school session for us at on set. So they had like a few teachers who would help us with our homework, and all of our normal teachers at at school usually would give us like packets to try to keep up with what they were learning in class, and then the teachers on set would like help us if we needed help with that. But it wasn't really the same as being in a classroom and like hearing a lecture and taking notes, and just trying to learn off of worksheets is not ideal. So a lot of the time I would reach out to friends and have them like help explain the content to me, or on the weekends I would like try to YouTube certain things and like get my own lecture in instead of like just trying to learn from the worksheet. So it definitely was hard. There were some like weeks where like we would be on set and then we'd be back at school, and we'd be on set for a week and then be back. And so when I was back at school for a little bit, I would go to my teachers at break and lunch and ask them to explain this, or I'd be taking tests during lunch to like try to catch up and make sure my grades stayed up. So it was definitely challenging, but I think it just took a lot of like self-motivation on my part to be like, hey, even though I have this dance thing going on, I still have the motivation to want to, achieve in school. So yeah, that's kind of how I approached that, which it was difficult, but I made it through.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you made it through. That contest was your sophomore year of high school.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. A lot of maturity for a sophomore in high school to make that happen.
Definitely.
So then after that, after this contest, how did you do in the contest, by the way? Did it turn out how you guys expected?
We did so much better than we thought we expected. We actually made it through 3 rounds of the
Oh,
show. So we were, one of the last groups in our division to be cut, which was a sad time, but it was definitely a great experience regardless. We did pretty well that season, and we honestly just made a lot of like friends and connections in the dance world. So that was really cool. And yeah, we did, just as good as better than we thought we would do. So
that's good. I'm glad to hear that. That's an exciting time. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. So then after that, you're making your way into your junior and senior year. And were you getting in any more contests prior to college?
So I ended up, I think that, yeah, there was a time that I was like, okay, I need to stop doing competition dance so I can focus on my studies. Because sophomore year was really difficult for me, and my grades dropped a lot more than I expected. So then I was like, I need to take a break from dance so I have more time to study and, have time to get my grades up. And so I wasn't a part of the original like competition season, and then someone dropped out, and I mentioned, and I was missing it so much. I was like, wow, like this is so hard for me. I, missed dancing as much as I was. I was still dancing on my high school dance team this whole time, but I'm just referring to like competition dance, like studio dance outside of it. And I was like, I miss it. And so I ended up like joining like 2 dances last minute to like kind of help that someone like dropped out last minute. And so I ended up competing that season anyways. And then, I was still able to manage my grades because that was a huge priority, and I was at school 100% of the time. So it was a lot easier. And then senior year, I was getting ready to compete, but then COVID happened. So we didn't have any competitions that season. But yes, I did still do studio competition dance the rest of my high school years. And so then that's when I applied for Cal Dance Team after my senior year. And I was still, had all the skills and the technique. And I made it onto the team for my freshman year.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. Well, again, that's a huge accomplishment. And you're busy as a Cal Dance team member, right? You're at every sporting event just about dang near.
Yes, exactly. We during football season, we're at every single football game. And we have, practices all throughout the week, and, trying to manage, other things like you're involved in, like everyone pretty much on the team is involved in some other kind of organization. So it definitely is a lot. And then in the spring, it's basketball season. And then sometimes we have to show up for special events for rally committee and, just showing up for student events, or whether there's like someone special coming, we got to be there. So there's just a lot of different, commitments and last minute things we got to hop on to as, members of the dance team.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure this last year being on the Cal Dance team, there's going to be a lot of unforgettable moments.
Yes.
But these first 3 years, what would you say one of your most favorite moments on the team has been?
Wow. Okay. I'll say two. One of my most favorites was playing our rivalry game, the big game against Stanford. And we won, and everyone like rushed the field, and it was like so just chaotic and exciting. And it's just really fun to like have the whole student body, be there, and like being supporting and having a lot of people to perform to is so fun. So that's definitely one of my favorite memories. And then another favorite memory is when the whole dance team went to the men's basketball Pac-12 tournament in Las Vegas 2 years ago. And it was just so much fun to have like the whole team together. And it was such a bonding experience and traveling together. And we just made so many fun memories on that trip. So those two would definitely be the highlight of my dance team experience.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Well, wonderful. Well, I'm happy for you that you've been able to carry this dream out and really dig into it and be a part of so many amazing opportunities with it. We're going to take a quick little break and we're going to jump right back into it. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Yes.
So we are back, and we were just talking about Caitlyn's time as a dancer and all that she's been able to do. And we're going to kind of bring it back now into the college career aspect of what do you hope to do after college? Obviously, you have so many experiences under your belt. You've got student government, you've got media studies, cognitive science, you've got dance, and marketing too, which we haven't touched on as much. And I'd be happy to touch on that if you want to dig more into that. Maybe it leads into this question, but what do you hope to do after college, and where do you kind of lean towards right now?
Yes, definitely. So throughout college, I have not been too sure what I want to do, right? Cognitive science and media studies, they're both pretty broad. They're both interdisciplinary. You can go a lot of different routes with both of those majors. But what I ultimately thought that I would be best in is, I've grown up doing storytelling through dance, trying to like captivate an audience and get people to like watch a story with no words, right? So that's like a little bit funny, but it's something that I've grown up doing. Every single dance is a story in itself. And I kind of stumbled across how connected storytelling is with marketing. And I was like, I really do want to learn more about this. I don't know a lot about marketing. Media studies is kind of like mass communications, where you're learning about, different things. You're taking writing courses, you're, doing a lot of essays, humanities work, humanities courses. And I ended up joining a marketing consulting club called Undergraduate Marketing Association. And through this club, it's very similar to a consulting club, except it's all marketing focused, which is like exactly what I wanted exposure to. And that was, a very long and hard interview process. I think the interview process was like 2 weeks. You were going like in person to interviews. I think I interviewed 3 different times with like, almost 10 different people probably. And I was very excited to be selected, and I was selected for the strategy team. So, marketing strategy. And that was like my first exposure to, working with marketing and learning more about it. And we work directly with clients in the real world, real companies. And we work with them on their marketing strategies, or if they have any goals, we, kind of work through them and, do surveys. We do market research. We do some data analysis. We compile the data. We present it. So that was really cool, getting to like present our findings to the CEO of a company based in San Francisco at the end of the semester. And I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. There is a huge storytelling aspect. And I feel like that is so innate to who I am. I've just grown up storytelling. And so I've really enjoyed that. So this summer, I'm actually working in a marketing and communications internship at a financial services firm called Wedbush Securities. They're based in downtown Los Angeles. They're headquartered there, and they have offices, in New York and Chicago and everywhere around the US. And that has been such a cool introduction to like the corporate side of marketing, and just learning about how, such an established company, markets their brand, markets to their clients and their advisors, and, in the recruitment process as well. So it's been really cool, and I enjoy it a lot. Post-college, I, of course, want to stay somewhat in that field, but I'm not like I enjoy it and I know I like it, but I'm not married to it, as I've said multiple times and multiple things. I'm really the type of person, I've always said from the beginning too, I envision myself and my career as such a non-linear path. Like I don't see myself, starting in a role and just like progressing from there. I see myself, doing one thing and then trying another, and then, being curious and trying something else, and, just seeing what fits me best. I feel like I have so many different passions. I want to make sure I, explore all of those and don't just get stuck in one thing that maybe I like, but I don't want to just like do forever. So yeah, that's kind of, I'm hoping to either go, into marketing or maybe consulting, or, maybe business roles, or, maybe tech marketing, product marketing. So I'm really open. I'm just going to, see what the universe has in store for me, and just kind of, put myself out there and try to, market myself honestly in the job process. So that's kind of where I'm at, and what I want to do, post grad.
Absolutely. I love that. And I mean, nonlinear is perfect. That's perfect. And it's, again, so cool to see you being able to want to bounce around, even having two specific degrees that will be under your belt, and then saying, hey, I'm not limited to these. And I think everyone should learn from that. And you're a great example for doing that. So exciting, very exciting. That's wonderful. Well, the future looks bright, and I'm excited to see what it holds for you. So
thank you.
We're going to have a couple of closing questions here, because you've just done an awesome job telling everybody about your story. So the first one is, what is the most stressful part of being a student day in and day out?
Yes, this is a great question. I would say, I feel like a struggle that's not often talked about, especially in college, is how, extroverted you have to be to succeed. I feel like that's a huge thing that's not discussed. And, especially at a place like Berkeley, where academics are so, highly regarded and difficult, you need a community, or you need other people to support you through the process, whether that is a club, whether that is, your dorm hall, or whether that's, finding people. And I feel like I've heard a lot of stories at Berkeley where people struggle with that. And that's because, in college, extroverts, kind of take the reign, and the people that are willing or able to put themselves out there and make friends and join things and take the risks often have that support system, whereas, other people may not. And so I feel like that is a stressful thing, is, kind of always having to be, outgoing and friendly. Sometimes in college there's so much going on, you just want to relax, and maybe you don't want to, go through the process of joining that club, and it can be scary and it's daunting. But that definitely is something that I think is so important to, get the most out of your college experience. So I would say, I obviously seem very extroverted, but I do have, a very introverted side to me as well. I would say that I'm an extroverted introvert. I love, being alone and not having to meet a ton of people, and, I have that side of me. But in college, sometimes it's stressful to have to turn on when you don't necessarily want to. I feel like, the most difficult answer is like, oh, school is so hard, and it is, but I feel like it's even harder if you don't have a support system, and even more stressful if you don't have people. And I'm so grateful I do have, a lot of different communities at Cal I'm able to lean on, and go to for support. But yeah, I would say that's probably, one of the most stressful parts, even though I feel like that's not a very typical answer.
No, that's actually not a typical answer, but I love it. I think you put it so well. You do need to be extrovert in that sense to get that support. And hey, some people, haven't maybe explored that aspect of themselves, and it's a difficult transition. So I think that's a wonderful piece of advice. Next question, which kind of I think ties right into it, but what is the most meaningful way for students to help each other?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think the most meaningful way is to just be an open person. And, you want to make, this isn't everyone's responsibility, but I think it's so helpful to make people feel comfortable in a new space, and especially when it's new yourself. I think that, joining different things and just being open to mentor people is such a useful, such a beneficial thing. And I found myself, like, with younger people, or people transferring into Berkeley, they'll reach out to me on social media or online, and ask like, oh, what classes did you take? I'm interested in cognitive science. Or I've had people be like, oh, my younger sister is interested in media studies and cognitive science. I'd love to talk to you. And I think, like, having an open mind and just wanting to help other people is a great way to, kind of approach that mindset. And of course, joining organizations you're passionate about, and that also help other people, whether that's student government or whether that's, the sustainability clubs on campus or whatever it is, just joining things that you personally enjoy. And then, you kind of just like help people in the process. So I would definitely say that was kind of a little bit of a stray answer, but that's
No,
kind of
I
my
like that. Keep that open mind. I was like, that's wonderful. Next question. This is a big question. What is your biggest hope to accomplish during your time on Earth?
Wow. Oh my gosh. This is such a crazy question, but well, okay, I'll just give my honest answer. There's a lot of things that are coming to my mind, but I'm just like, do I really want to say that? I would say, one of the biggest things that I want to accomplish is having a family and, raising children who in this world are, good people who want to, help also change the world and make it a better place. That's like a huge goal of mine, is to, have a family and also like raise children that are conscious of the world they're entering and, wanting to make change. That's one big thing. But I would say, like, besides like the family element, I would love to just be a person that people view as a resource. And, I think like that in itself is an accomplishment, to just be someone that people can come to with anything, whether that's, career advice, whether that is, personal advice, relationship advice. Like, I just want to be a resource to people. And so I would say those are kind of like the goals that I hope to accomplish during my time on Earth,
Absolutely.
which is
No,
such a broad and crazy question. But yeah, that's
it
my
is a broad and great, crazy question. That's why I probably like asking it. But no, those are wonderful. Those two goals, I think they both fall on the line of just giving back.
yeah.
And I personally agree with that idea. Like, having a family is so important to raise children that can actually give back in that sense. And also being that resource and helping other people and having that as a fundamental part of yourself, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, it speaks to your character. Those are great answers. I really like those answers. So next question for you. What is your top piece of advice for those who are early in their educational journey?
Yes, my top piece of advice. So I would say, if you are like in high school, like still waiting to apply to college, one of the biggest pieces of advice is, kind of cheesy, but be yourself, but also find things that make you excited, and really try to explore and don't get stuck in what you've just done the past few years of high school, or you don't get stuck in what you think you should be doing. Just honestly just follow what you want to do. I think that's one of the best things, if you're in high school, and I think in college. Still, like, my best piece of advice is to try to put yourself out there. And I know that's not everyone's personality, but I think taking that risk can be so beneficial in the long term, because you never know what kind of relationships you're building, or the people that you're connecting with can have such a huge impact on the course of your life. And having those people as people you can go to for a recommendation, or for advice, or just whatever it is, I think is so useful. And that kind of stinks, because not everyone's outgoing, but it is I think a useful piece of advice and a great skill to learn, because the workplace, extroverts also thrive in the workplace, and extroverts are more likely to get promoted. And so just like trying to like learn that skill and work on it, whatever it is, I think is a great piece of advice, and definitely useful in the real world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Caitlyn, you've been a wealth of information, and it's been awesome having you on and hearing about your path. And I think so many can benefit from what you've said today, and it's just been awesome. And I know this has only been under an hour, so for all the peers around you, I'm sure they've just loved having you as their colleague in these last couple of years. And where can people follow you and learn more and keep up with what you're doing as the years continue?
Yes, definitely. So I have a LinkedIn profile. It's just my first and last name, where I am pretty active on like what I'm doing and, job updates and things like that. I also have an Instagram page, so that's also just my name. But yeah, so those are a few different places people can keep up with me.
Well, go connect with her. And Caitlyn, again, thank you so much. It's been awesome having you on today.
Yes, I'm so glad that I was able to join. Thank you for having me.